You're tuning into the Wild, Weird, and Sometimes Normal podcast. If you have a story or a guest recommendation that you think others need to hear, email me at wildweirdandsometimesnormal@gmail.com. Let's get this started. Alex and Brett, kick it!
Wild. Wild. Weird. And sometimes wild. Weird. Wild. Weird. Wild. Weird. Wild. And sometimes normal.
On this episode, I have James Reinhardt, who wears many hats in the world of cinema. James has written and directed a short horror film about the Jersey Devil. In addition to his film, we also go down a rabbit hole on Bigfoot and other cryptids, discuss if knowing the magic of movie making takes away from watching the magic of someone else's movie, and throughout the episode, we discuss horror movies. Check out James's movie on the Jersey Devil and leave him feedback that you heard him on Wild and Weird. Are you looking for CBD for your pet? My friends at Pure Pet Wellness have what you need. They use the highest quality ingredients. While other companies may use synthetic oils in their CBD, Pure Pet Wellness uses organic ingredients. Organically grown hemp, organic coconut oil, organic shea butter, organic beeswax, and that's just to name a few. A family-owned and operated company that also offers fast shipping. Go to purepetwellness.com for all your pet's CBD needs and use the discount code WILD and WEIRD at checkout. That's WILD, A-N-D, WEIRD. Treat your animal right. Go to purepetwellness.com. Are you looking to buy a home in New Jersey, escape the city and move to the suburbs? Finally purchase a vacation home on the lake or down the shore? Maybe you're one of the lucky ones who are retiring and moving out of state. If so, let me help you. Keller Williams and the Real Estate Professional Group have what you need to make your goals come true. Reach out and have a conversation with someone who will put you first. Contact Brian McCoach at 856-321-1212 or email brianmccoach@kw.com. Welcome to another episode of Wild, Weird, and Sometimes Normal. I'm your host, Brian, and today our guest is James Reinhardt, independent filmmaker. Welcome, James.
Hey, thank you for having me on.
Hey, I really appreciate you jumping on.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm a former podcaster myself. I'm a bit retired, though I come out of retirement every now and then for guest spots like this.
I appreciate it. What was your podcast about?
So it was a film chat podcast. We called it Cinema d'Amore. My co-hosts, they actually still do it. They're still going strong. I kind of started getting burnt out, so I stepped away. That went from being a brief sabbatical to just, not doing it anymore. Mostly because of, life and stuff like that. Every month we would have a theme and we'd pick movies in that theme and discuss it. But I went back on this past October to discuss the last Halloween film. That was my official guest appearance and final appearance on that.
Sometime after Halloween 85 or whatever it was, I really had to stop paying attention. The originals were great. Number 3 had nothing to do with the trilogy. It was the best. Or I guess more than a trilogy, the series was the best. And Jamie Lee Curtis coming back, Michael Myers coming back for the 50th time. I think it's beyond me.
Yeah, these new ones are a little easier to pick up because they ignore all the sequels. But I really liked the 2018 one. And the reason why I came back for Halloween was on our podcast. Our first episode was the original Halloween from, 78. So it just became a tradition where every year we would do a Halloween movie on Halloween. And then, like I said, I stepped away because of other commitments. And then this one Halloween Ends was, quote unquote, supposed to be the last Halloween film. So my co-hosts were like, well, we got to get you back to discuss the final Halloween film. And I had a lot of thoughts. I won't get into it here, but, go listen to Cinema d'Amore if you want to hear me chat about that last Halloween film.
My word of caution for you, though, is that if Hollywood has taught me anything, that is never the final one. And there's always more blood on that stone that you can try to draw.
Oh, absolutely. And I didn't believe for a second when they said this is the final Michael Myers film. And I give it 5 years before they try to reboot it again. But it was a polarizing movie for sure. People seem to love it or hate it. And all I can say is that I watched it on Peacock, and all I can say is I was glad I didn't see it in theaters.
Before we get too much into the greatest serial killers, the greatest horror movies, why don't you give us some background on yourself as a filmmaker? And then as we go further down the road, we can start branching off.
Sounds good. So yeah, I grew up here in the Pittsburgh area. Pittsburgh is we love our horror films here in Pittsburgh. Obviously George Romero, Night of the Living Dead, the entire subgenre. I was basically born here. So I grew up like around all that. And I knew as far back as I can remember, I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. I knew I wanted to make movies. As I got older, like into high school, screenwriting was really what seemed to interest me the most of the filmmaking process. Then I went to Point Park University here in Pittsburgh for filmmaking. And after graduation, there's a big indie film community here in Pittsburgh. And so after graduation, I sort of got involved in the indie film community here, and I'd also work crew on productions come through town because we're a big production hub in Pittsburgh. It's cheap to film here, so a lot of like TV shows and movies they shoot here in Pittsburgh. Oftentimes, Pittsburgh stands in for New York because we're cheaper than New York. So if you're watching something that takes place in New York, sometimes it's shot in Pittsburgh. Or if it is a story that does take place in Pittsburgh, it really emphasizes the Rust Belt aspects of our city. But yeah, so a lot of stuff shoots here, so it's easy to work crew here. So I work crew on a lot of indie stuff. Shot my own short horror film last year, hoping to turn that into a feature. And then I also teach a film class here in Pittsburgh, so I'm pretty active in our community here.
Let's go back over the indie short that you shot. I saw the clip on Facebook, and it was amazing. It was really good.
Whoa, wow, thank you. Yeah, I've always been interested in cryptids, as they're called, like Bigfoot, Chupacabra, Loch Ness Monster. And around middle school, I heard the story of the Jersey Devil. I was like watching like one of those like, true horror story things on like TV around Halloween. And these kids talk about the Jersey Devil. And it really just like captured my interest from a young age. And I always like wanted to make a movie about the Jersey Devil. And there's been a couple made, and I'd seen them and they're all pretty terrible. But so I always just wanted to do it right. And I spent years trying to write a script around the legend of the Jersey Devil. I couldn't quite crack it. And then I came up with this idea for like a sort of a body horror take on it. So I wrote a couple drafts of that. And I remember it was 2020, early 2020. My goal for that year was to get this script, in shape that I could start sending it out to people. And I like turned down a bunch of crew work on a bunch of, stuff. I was like, I'm just going to focus on the script. Nothing else is going to distract me. And then, the pandemic happened and the lockdown happened. So I was like, well, now I have nothing to distract me. I spent most of lockdown pretty much working on that script, and I sent it to a buddy of mine in the film community who's a producer, just to get his feedback. He was like, oh, I think we can make this. And I hadn't even thought about it. I thought about just like shopping it around and trying to sell it. But he was like, I think this is producible. I think we can make this. So we started talking, seriously about producing it. And then him and we made a short film together in 2021 that won Best Film at a local film festival here. And that sort of gave us the momentum and like the confidence to be like, well, let's try, this Jersey Devil thing. So we shot a short proof of concept in February of 2022. Props to my cast and crew. We were filming in the woods in like 17-degree weather. Jess, our main actress, is running around like with this prop gun being chased by a guy in a monster costume. Then she's got to go through makeup. Everyone who worked on it was a trooper. But yeah, so we shot this little proof of concept. It basically gives you, sort of a teaser of what the film can be about. We're going to try to use that to shop around the film and, get funds to make the full length version of it.
I think it's great. The monster itself looks good. The story behind it, I thought was interesting. And, even though it was a spin, I guess, a little bit on the Jersey Devil, it was unique on its own.
Oh, thank you.
Great job. Kudos. I'm on the doorstep of the Pine Barrens, about maybe half a mile away from the start of the Pine Barrens. Grew up in the Jersey area for the most part. So the Jersey Devil, big around here and just a fun story to know and to go. I love cryptids. Anything weird, I'm fully in on. Have you ever seen anything interesting in the woods or out there?
I mean, I've heard some weird stuff, but I'm super interested in cryptids and all that stuff, but I'm also super skeptical. So I've heard some stuff. I did go to the Pine Barrens once in New Jersey in 2019. My ex and I, we went on a vacation, and she's like, let's go to Pine Barrens. You're writing a script about the Jersey Devil. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. So I did just kind of hang out around there. Didn't see anything, unfortunately, but my dad, he's the one who got me into cryptids and cryptozoology. He's big into Bigfoot to the point where he fell in with some local Bigfoot hunters here in PA and in Ohio. So I went on a few Bigfoot hunts with him as Bigfoot hunting buddies because I knew if anything, there's going to be a story. And we heard like some weird noises, like, sticks scratching. We heard some weird growl of some sort in the distance. We couldn't be sure of what it was. A lot of them, anything out of the ordinary, they in the woods, they attribute to Bigfoot. And I'm sort of like, well, I'm not a woods, like I'm a city boy. Like I'm not, like a woodsman or anything like that. So I'm like, I don't know what that could have been anything. I'm not going to jump to conclusions. But yeah, that's about like the strangest I've heard is that this weird roar and like weird, like, something going through the woods and twigs breaking kind of a thing.
Do you think Bigfoot exists, or do you think it's just more fun to believe that it could exist?
I think it's really fun to believe that it could exist. If you would have asked me this question maybe 10, 15 years ago, I would have been like, oh yeah, I absolutely believe he exists. But now, I'm a little bit older, I've read a lot. I'm on both sides of the argument, and a lot about science and other stuff like that. I've sort of changed. I'm sort of like, man, I wish it was real, but I don't think it is. It'd be great if tomorrow is proven wrong, but every now and then it's fun to kind of believe that we have this sort of humdrum everyday life. It'd be sort of fun to believe that there are monsters out there, and I think that's sort of the appeal of cryptids. But the rational part of me says it's not there.
Right. So for the Pine Barrens, even on a map in New Jersey, it's huge. It's vast. But there are major roadways, there are major arteries cutting through the Pine Barrens. It would make it very difficult for the Jersey Devil to be real. There have been some Bigfoot sightings in the Pine Barrens. Hey, easily you can go in the Pine Barrens and get lost. I mean, that's not a question. But it is also built up around there. So I find a little bit with the Pine Barrens specifically unfortunately, I don't think there's anything too crazy living in there. Now, I did drive up to the Finger Lakes last summer, up through northeastern Pennsylvania, up into New York, and it is just mountains everywhere and dense trees and forest. Now, somewhere like that, Pacific Northwest, I think there's a possibility that there could be, a one-off, a small family of Bigfoots. But to have, and mountains, Afghanistan and out in Nepal and things like that, like you could have possibly a Yeti or something like that. But for there to be in every state and to never truly get caught, sadly, I think I'm leaning more on your side. I want it to be real. I want that Loch Ness monster to swim up on the shore and, just sunbathe for a little bit, but I just don't think it's happening.
Yeah. And, like I said, it's fun. And like, I've also said that like if there is something, because I agree with you, like just the Pacific Northwest, Nepal, like some of those areas are so remote and so inaccessible, it could be feasible that maybe that there's something there, in the thicker areas where people don't go. Like I said, I hung out with my dad and his Bigfoot buddies, and then if you just watch any of those shows, like History Channel, Discovery Channel, there's tons of Bigfoot monster hunting shows. Like those dudes out running around the woods hunting monsters, they're not like scientists, they're not like biologists, they're doing it in a very unscientific way where they're just kind of running around making noises and shining lights and desert cameras. And like I do know about the woods is anytime there's loud humans running around the woods, all the animals are going in the opposite direction. But but also like you said, it's just like a lot of, especially when I was hanging out to big hunting groups, it's just like I call them weekend warriors. They're people that like do this on their weekends and they work regular jobs, but they don't know they don't know anything about evolution, they don't know anything about biology, so they're I'm not saying that they're dumb, like some of them are very intelligent people, but like they're kind of coming at it from a place of ignorance. So if there was something there, they're not approaching it in a way that could verify its existence one way or another.
How much of them do you think is the weekend warriors is just cracking beers and camping for the weekend?
A lot of it is that, it is definitely that, like just hanging out with your buddies, people looking for an excuse. Some of them, I'm like, it's just an excuse to go hiking. Like, you say you're going for Bigfoot, you just go and hang out in the woods and like, there's nothing wrong with that. But there's also this really interesting documentary I watched. I'm trying to remember what it was called. It was on Prime, but it was like Prime has a lot of like paranormal documentaries. And one I just put on one night, like I was bored and I'm like, oh, it's a Bigfoot documentary. This one is about these group of guys. They're hardcore Bigfoot believers, and they absolutely believed, and to them like seeing Bigfoot was something like a religious experience to them. But these dudes, like they all sort of fit this sort of type where they were once like really successful guys, and they all for whatever reason had fallen on hard times, and they sort of all latched on to Bigfoot believing, that was sort of their distraction from like how shitty their lives had gotten. That was like sort of the thing that they all latched onto to like make them give themselves a sense of purpose was Bigfoot. And that to me, this documentary became really fascinating to me, is watching these guys who were all sort of down on their luck using Bigfoot hunting almost as like a religion, like a thing to keep them going, to give them faith. And I think that is the case of a lot of these weekend warrior types, is, you know, not all of them for sure, but like guys who just kind of need something to get them, you know, through the day or give them something to believe in. And there's Bigfoot. And that to me, I think there's something really interesting to be looked into about that when it comes to cryptozoology, you know, Bigfoot, UFOs, or like, you know, ghost hunting. Ghost hunting's big. That kind of falls under that umbrella as well.
Two thoughts here. One, there's a great podcast called The Confessionals with Tony Merkel, and he has people, you know, they just report their own experiences, and he doesn't grill them too hard or anything. And it's, you know, it's kind of like a your truth thing. Like if you saw a UFO, you know, he's not going to quiz you and like, you know, where are they coming from and what's their fuel source and how they get, you know, just like, all right, tell me your story and things like that. And there are some people who go hunting, zero interest in Bigfoot whatsoever, come across something in the woods, and it has scared them to death that they never go back in the woods again, according to their stories. So, but also, you know, the woods are a bit of a scary place. You know, it can get dark in there quick. You can get off track pretty quick. There's noises throughout there. So, you know, that's something that's interesting.
Yeah.
My second,
oh, no, go ahead. I'll go after you.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Just my second point is, I think it's in Australia, the Tasmanian tiger was extinct.
Oh, yeah.
And now there's videos of them. You know, there's still frames, there's trail cams, and they're catching them. And Australia still refuses to recognize that they're back in existence, or, you know, that they ever went extinct or whatever. They're still saying, no, not real. It's just a dog. It's just a coyote, whatever it might be. And I was listening to a podcast somewhere, and they were talking, you know, discussing, like, why would they do that? Like there is this pretty solid evidence, everything but a body, of showing this Tasmanian tiger, that the stripes on it and everything. And then, you know, somebody thought their position was that Australia doesn't want to recognize that these things are back, because then they'd be an endangered animal, and everywhere within their habitat would just have to shut down completely. So if you were building new homes, if you were building a road, you know, whatever you might be, would have to stop immediately, because that's now a protected area where this endangered animal lives.
Yeah,
So,
that's interesting.
yeah, I find that interesting. On, you know, could that be, you know, granted, like Bigfoot's like 10 feet tall and he's ripping through trees and all these things like that. It's kind of hard to hide him. But Pacific Northwest, huge logging area, all these trees they're cutting down. And the second that you say, or you show proof, or the government scientist, whoever it might be, you know, take the hair samples and go, oh no, it definitely is an ape, and it's not anything we have within our science books, and we have to create something new. That area all of a sudden becomes locked down, and you're no longer logging. You're losing those jobs. You know, so that's one way to look at it that I thought was, you know, at least something interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I was going to say, you know, you talked about, you know, interviewing people who had experiences like, you know, it's like their truth. Once again, with my dad, I went to like a meeting of these Bigfoot hunters, and it was almost like a support group, because there were people who weren't affiliated with them who had experiences, and they came just to share their experience in like a safe, you know, judgment-free zone. And a lot of them were really, you know, they really came off as credible. They really came off as believable. A lot of them, they never wanted to say Bigfoot. You know, they're from their point of view, they'd experienced or saw something that they couldn't explain. Those were the ones I found them like very credible. They came off very serious. Like they seemed nervous, like they were going to be ridiculed, but, you know, they had seen something. There was a couple that had actually seen one. They saw one on the side of the road. And then there was like one guy who was a hunter, and he heard one. And he's like, I've been a hunter all my life. You know, I've been in the woods, and I've never heard something like, and it was like what you said, where like it scared him so bad. Like he ran, like, you know, he like had taken his boat out to the secluded area to hunt. He spent the night there. Then he heard it in the night, and he ran back to his boat and like got back to his truck and drove home that night. And, you know, he's like, I've never been that. I've done that all the time, where I spend the night in the woods, and he's like, I've never heard something like that before. You know, I've never been that scared before in my life. In the case of the couple, they're just driving by the woods, and they saw one. And, you know, it was almost like it didn't register to them. They drove by, thought, was that what we thought it was? And then they stopped and turned around and drove back. And then they saw it, you know, it was still walking up the hill they'd driven by. Both of these people they really like struck me, because they both came off. They had never thought about Bigfoot before. They never taken it seriously. Then, you know, they had seen this, you know, they both had these different experiences, and, you know, it seemed to have shaken them a bit.
Yeah, they definitely saw something. And it's interesting. They might not have the proof for it. And that's what makes it really hard is
Mhm.
one, there's two things that makes it very hard. One, everybody wants a million Instagram followers and they want to be the next celebrity and they want to be on, whatever reality TV show. So whenever your story is, you have to kind of like follow the money. Like, well, what are you guys really trying to push? What are you going for? So
Yeah.
the hunter who loves to hunt, he's out there sleeping out overnight. Like he just lost something that he likes to do. And it doesn't seem like he's doing it for a monetary reason. And this couple, they saw something on the side of the road and it shook them enough. But unfortunately, they don't have the proof. And it seems like, the science isn't there to support them or do anything. And if you take this story to the mainstream, there's a small circle that would embrace you. And then there's, the other circle that would just mock you. And it kind of makes it seem like it's better to not tell anybody, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was exactly these people where they never told anyone about their experiences. And then, they heard about this group in Ohio. They were told, to come and share what they had, seen. Like the hunter story really struck me because like I said, he'd gone out to this secluded area. He'd driven out there in his truck, then he'd gotten onto his boat and like rode, across the river or something, this really secluded area that he hunts in a lot. And then he had set up his tent and he slept there overnight. And then he woke up, he heard something moving outside his tent. And he lit a lantern that he had, and then something like outside like screamed when the lantern went on. And he was like, I just ran. Like I'd never heard something like that before. And I've been out in the woods my whole life. And he's like, I just ran, got my boat, rode away, got my truck, and drove. But he came off really nervous, really sincere. He'd even like drawn a map to where he had his sighting. But yeah, it was like I said, it was like, they had never told anyone. Then they heard about this group and it was a safe place to share. And they weren't interested in like attention or, being famous or anything like that. They just kind of wanted someone to hear their story.
Since we're getting weird, let's get weird. Do you have any thoughts on how Earth or, if Bigfoot is interdimensional at all, or they're just doesn't exist, or they would just be a regular ape hybrid type of thing that nobody has caught?
Hollow Earth, I wouldn't say I don't have that much knowledge. I've heard, vague, Hollow Earth conspiracy theories. So I'm not really knowledgeable in that, but I don't think I believe that one. But I love the Bigfoot is an interdimensional being theory. I don't believe it, but it's super fun. Like I love listening to those. And I've heard a bunch of different versions of it, that Bigfoot's an interdimensional being, or that all cryptids are interdimensional beings that like come in and out of our, our world. I've heard versions of it where, they're all sort of thought forms that feed off of like belief, and that's why they, appear and disappear. But those are really fun to read. And they obviously they wrap everything up in a neat bow, why we can't ever catch one or find a body, or why they always seem to be out of focus. But obviously I don't believe those ones, but they're super fun to listen to. And I've heard obviously that Bigfoot some form of undiscovered ape. Then I've heard that it's, some sort of offshoot of, Homo sapien, that's not quite human, but close enough to us. And I feel like it's probably the ape or the, undiscovered species of human. If it is real, it's probably one of those two.
I guess we'll never know until somebody drags a body out.
Yeah, I used to spend a lot of time like on Bigfoot websites and forums. And that's the big debate in the Bigfoot community is to like, if you, come across one in the woods and you have a gun, like, do you kill it or do you let it go? And, it's like the pro kill, don't kill. Because, some people say it's endangered, so you shouldn't kill it. And other people are saying that's the only way to prove Bigfoot's real is to kill one and bring back a body. And, it is a tough debate, but like, I think at the end of the day, if it is real, the only way to prove it is to, bring back a dead body.
Take the shot, take them out. You have to do it.
Yeah, and
as a it has to be tough though, because there's even the stories with Bigfoot. This wasn't supposed to be a whole Bigfoot podcast, but yet here we are, and I'm all in for it. There's the people who said that they've seen Bigfoot, that the eyes are more human than they are animal. So the hunters, even when they've had a gun on them, or if they had it in the sights, that they said as they're looking at it, it's almost like looking at a human's eyes, which makes it hard for them, and hence why there has not been a dead Bigfoot that brought in.
Yeah, and I've heard that too. Like the hunters that have seen one and went to shoot it, then yeah, exactly. They saw the eyes. The eyes looked so human they couldn't do it. A big advocate for Bigfoot, and a big Bigfoot believer is Grover Krantz, he was like a well-respected. I think he was an anthropologist, but he got really into Bigfoot towards the end of his life. And anytime he was walking in the woods, he carried a gun with him in case he saw one because he wanted to shoot it to prove. And then, there have been stories of people who have shot Bigfoots and, they couldn't, then they went back and couldn't find the body, or the Bigfoot, disappeared into the woods. And all that. Conveniently they couldn't find the body after shooting one.
It's so convenient for them, right there.
Yeah.
Let's swing back to movies for a second. So you've been working on movies for a long time behind the film, behind the camera. So when I'm watching a horror movie, like I know it's not real. I know Michael Myers isn't real, but there are some of them that like they're scary as shit. And it's not like, Killer Clowns is a funny one. You watch that, you're not really scared of it. First time Candyman came out in the 90s, I had to watch that movie standing in the middle of my bedroom in daylight with the blinds up. I was like, all right, Candyman's not going to get me. Do you lose any of that mystique, any of that mystery since you've been behind the camera, you've seen all of this, that when you're watching on TV, you're almost watching it as like an ex-athlete of you're not watching the fun of the game. You're dissecting like, oh, this guy's like 2 steps out of position and he should be over here to make the right play.
Not really. I can, especially if it's something I'm watching for the first time, I can turn that off. If it's a film I'm experiencing for the first time, I'm usually just letting myself be caught up in the moment and experience, the story, the emotions with those films. When I watch it, if I'm watching a film that I've seen before, if I'm watching something a second time, then I kind of start to think about that. Like, how did they shoot this? What sort of gave them this idea? The kind of stuff like that. And typically, especially if it's something I really like I'll start reading stuff behind like the creative process or like how they did a certain thing and stuff like that. But if it's the first time filmed I'm watching, if I'm really engaged, I'm not thinking that. On the flip side of that, if it's something that hasn't pulled me in, if I'm not really engaged, then my mind kind of starts deconstructing it, being like, oh, I wonder how many takes this was, or why did that actor make that certain choice? Stuff like that kind of starts to seep into my brain. But from a writing perspective, I am sort of always kind of analyzing the script when I'm watching a film, though, where there's a certain format that most films follow. So in my brain, while I'm watching a movie, I'm like, oh, okay, this is the end of the first act. This is a midpoint. This is the third act. I kind of do stuff like that where I try to, kind of figure out like how it's going to end. And it does, in a way, sort of ruin some movies, because I've seen a movie that came out recently, the Dungeons and Dragons movie, which I really enjoyed. I loved it, but I sort of had kind of figured out every plot point before it got to it, because after you work on movies, if you write movies, but after you watch so many movies, you kind of see where, things are going.
What inspires you as you're writing for your horror? Are you going to like folklore? Are you looking in just old books? Are you reading just other things and maybe it just makes a connection in your mind and starts wandering somewhere else to try to draw this in?
It's usually a couple different things. It really depends. The Jersey Devil thing that I wrote, I had tried writing like a monster movie, so I'd watched first Alien by Ridley Scott. I used that as inspiration, and I'd written a bunch of drafts as a script, sort of with that in mind, and it wasn't quite clicking. And then I ended up watching at one point David Cronenberg's The Fly. That clicked in my brain where it gave me an idea. I'm like, oh, well, what if I approach this not as a monster movie, but as a body horror movie where like someone's literally transforming into a devil? And that like sort of just got the wheels turning in my head. And then it started like as images in the script started coming out and I started writing them on like notes in my phone. And then from there, I started looking at other body horror, like Evil Dead. That's kind of a body horror type film. But those were sort of the ones that inspired me. Whereas you just brought folk horror. I love folk horror, and that's one of the scripts I'm trying to write as well right now. I've watched a couple of them to see, what works, what doesn't work. Like one that really inspired me was The Blood on Satan's Claw, which also inspired my Jersey Devil film a little bit too. But I'll watch these films and kind of see, as far as inspiration goes, what sort of like gets my mind going and what sort of makes me think like, oh, so what if I do this in this story? And so I try to draw from a bunch of different sources.
What are your thoughts? I think it's like creepypasta, right? Is that what the Slender Man is? Things like that, like these little short stories. What's your thoughts on that?
I've read a few pretty interesting ones. Slender Man, like I don't know why, like that. He had this moment a couple years ago when he was really popular. Like never.
He had
really,
those girls that tried killing the other girl because of Slender Man. I was like, oh, geez, like great advertising for him. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, that seemed to be the peak of it. Yeah, that was crazy, and that the documentary is really interesting about it. But like Slender Man never really clicked with me. But I read a few that I thought, as far as being short form horror stories, are really interesting. There's that one, I don't know what it was called, but it's like some dude goes into sensory deprivation to try and see God, and he ends up seeing something terrifying. That one I really liked a lot. But yeah, I always thought there's a short-lived show on Sci-Fi Channel called Channel Zero, I think, where every season they adapted a different creepypasta. Because they did one called, the first year was Candle Cove, which was, it's like the story's like a paragraph long, but they had to expand it into a whole season of a TV show. But that was a really interesting way of doing it. But yeah, I always found as far as just being short form horror stories, they're all pretty interesting.
Yeah, I like the idea of Slender Man. I don't think it's real at all. But
Mhm.
just like the looking through old photographs, and even when photography was first happening, if you didn't stay still long enough for the film to fully flash or whatever it might be, and you move, there would be, a ghost shadow of you moving because it wasn't fully
Yeah.
developed. And going back and now with CGI and everything else that people can go in Photoshop and everything, if you weren't there, did it even happen? And it's impossible to tell with deepfakes. But it is interesting at the time, 10 years ago, before any of this, seeing some of the stuff on the internet of people posting pictures and just the weird things that could be there. It's just fun things for your mind and fun things as a writer or in the horror movie area to go off on.
Yeah, it's I read a really interesting. Have you heard of the missing 411? That's sort of become a creepypasta.
I know that David Pallades, I think his name is,
Yeah.
does the missing 401. Yeah, so he has this whole state parks and people go missing. They'll find their clothes fully folded at the top of a mountain that's just like a sheer 400-foot drop. The person was at the bottom of the mountain before, then goes missing with a group of people. They turn around. A person will go missing. They'll find their clothes folded at the top of this mountain. It's really crazy stuff.
It is crazy. It is super interesting. But at some point, someone took that kind of they took like that, the missing 411, used it as like a springboard for like a creepy pasta. And that was one that really pulled me in, where they like did as a bunch of Reddit posts, talking about, because they mixed in like missing 411 stories with like little bits of fiction, like, oh yeah, sometimes you'll see like a staircase in the woods and like don't go up the staircase. Kind of created this creepy pasta around it, and that one I thought was very fascinating, very interesting. And I kind of like, oh, this is super. Then I realized I was reading a creepy pasta, but it had pulled me in, so it did its job.
The missing 401 on its own it's really interesting. And, I don't know how true the maps are, but they have allegedly a map of these deep underground military bases, these DUMBs that are throughout the country. And a lot of them line up underneath federal parks, federal state park, I guess, state parks, federal parks, whatever. And they line up there. You can't develop the land there. It's easy to shut off that area and just say it's closed. You can't trespass. You could get arrested, things like that. And these deep underground bases apparently line up with a lot of these parks, and a lot of these people who go missing are in the relative area of that. Something interesting.
That is interesting. And like all of this is sort of seems to be taking on like stories like this, and like sort of this oral tradition like evolves with the internet. And I've noticed now like on TikTok, like this stuff is sort of evolving on TikTok, where people are posting lots of mostly embellished or false stories about, creepypastas or, cryptid encounters and stuff like that. But it's kind of become like its own little subculture on that site. But that's what TikTok's for, is, going down these weird little rabbit holes.
Have you ever listened to the podcast Penny Royal?
I have not.
All right, Penny Royal, there's this podcast, and it's real life. These people live in the Kentucky area. There's just two guys down there. So this part of Kentucky is just amazing. It is the only verified, like little goblins came out of the ground, and then the police had to come. This is back in like the 50s or 60s.
I did hear about that incident. Yeah.
Right. So this is all in that area right there. And it's like almost like a Bermuda Triangle of Kentucky and Tennessee and all this stuff right here. It's just weird things that are happening to them. It's a really good podcast.
Interesting. I'll have to look that up. That does sound, because I've heard of that goblin story before. So I'll have to give it a listen.
Yeah, and there's all these tunnels in there that were used during the Civil War for hiding. Confederates hid in there. Apparently, there's supposed to be some gold and things like that. And then, I'm mixing up a couple podcasts all at once. Confederate gold. You're in the Pittsburgh area. There was this huge story that was in the news. So this father-son duo found their metal detectors were pinging that there was something like 2 tons of gold in the ground. They had to contact FBI. They thought it was the Confederate gold, which you have to get, I guess, a waiver of some sort to allow you to dig it up and keep it. And maybe you have to split a piece with the government. I'm not fully sure. So they get in contact with FBI. They agree they're going to meet, let's just use Tuesday, for example. They're going to meet Tuesday at 8 a.m. So the weekend before, all the residents are saying that the area's marked off, heavy machinery is coming, going back and forth. These Brinks-like trucks are going back and forth. The father and son show up Tuesday morning. The FBI is like, oh, we dug and there's nothing there. And the metal detector is not picking up anything anymore. So now they're suing the FBI. They're trying to do some FOIA request And it's coming out a little bit, slowly dripping. I mean, their case is going in their favor, but slowly dripping as the FBI and the FOIA said, oh, we have no information to turn over. The more they're requesting, the different buzzwords, search words they're using are kicking back some documents that are showing that possibly they did find something and the FBI may have taken the gold.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I have not heard about this.
This in your backyard. This could finance movie after movie for you. You missed out on a golden opportunity.
That's true. I did.
Literally, golden opportunity.
Yeah.
You.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a metal detector gold hunter, so but yeah, I have to look up this story. I did not hear about this, and it's a local Pittsburgh story here.
My wife lost her wedding ring and her engagement ring last year at the beach, and it took us a couple of days to realize that the rings were lost. And I went to the beach with a metal detector, and I found them, and these were ours. I'm only finding what's ours. To find something like that, I mean, that has to be like the thrill of a lifetime. I was so hyped. I found some stranger on the beach. I'm jumping up and down and high-fiving him. He was confused as anything. He's like, what's happening? But, I was hyped.
Hey, that's awesome, though. Good you found them.
I was very excited I found them. All right, let's do some. What are the top horror movies? Who are your top slayers? What's your Mount Rushmore?
So my Mount Rushmore horror films is number one is The Exorcist, William Friedkin. Favorite horror movie, one of my top 5 favorite movies. Number 2 is a Japanese film called Audition. It's the first horror movie that made me want to close my eyes and look away. It's so good, though. Sam Raimi's Evil Dead trilogy. I don't know which of them is my favorite. They're all so good, but the original trilogy. Neil Marshall's The Descent. It's so claustrophobic, still super effective today as it was when I first saw it. And then John Carpenter's The Thing. Yeah, that's always been one of my favorite horror films. I think I bought that movie on Blu-ray or DVD more times than I've bought any other movie. I could watch that endlessly. But that's my Mount Rushmore. As far as slashers, his movies are not great, but I love Jason. I don't know why, I have a soft spot for the big guy. But I always said with Jason is like, I'd always pick the Friday the 13th, even though Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween, is one of my top 10 favorite horror films of all time. I think it's a masterpiece. Overall, as a series, I think I prefer Friday the 13th because they're all pretty steady. They're not great movies, but they're fun and they all are kind of the same quality. As far as when you go to Michael Myers, it's sort of up and down. You have John Carpenter's first Halloween, which is a masterpiece. You got Halloween 2, which is kind of mediocre. Halloween 3, which I like. And then you just have a sudden dip in quality up until 2018. So I'll always pick the Friday the 13th franchise because for the most part, they're all pretty even quality. So I guess I'll say Jason and Michael Myers, 2 favorite slashers, Freddy Krueger as well. Wes Craven's one of my favorite filmmakers. And I love The First Nightmare on Elm Street. So I'd probably say those are top 3 slashers for me.
I know Hollywood doesn't do anything original anymore. And if you're not an X-Men or a Marvel superhero, Captain America, your movie's not getting made. But they reboot everything. And I haven't seen the latest Halloweens. And you said they kind of forgot about the other sequels and build off. Why aren't they ever rebooting those from minute one? Well, how come we're not getting a brand new Jason as him as a child drowning in the lake and going from that? Why is it always the Jason 15 and now he's on Mars?
They might actually be doing that with Jason. There's a TV show coming called Crystal Lake, which is supposed to be a prequel. It seems to be about young Jason and his mother. I'm not sure what there is to mine there, but I'm gonna watch it because I love Friday the 13th. So yeah, to answer your question, there is something coming.
You ask and you shall receive.
Yeah.
Do you consider Jaws a horror movie?
I do. Yeah, Jaws. As far as that definitely influenced me as a filmmaker. Back. As a kid, I was pretty scared of horror films, but Jaws was a pretty safe horror film that you could watch as a kid. And that definitely influenced me, being young, knowing I wanted to make movies. I obsessed over Jaws, and Jaws is still fucking amazing. He's the GOAT in my opinion. Spielberg still making great movies to this day. But yeah, Jaws is also one of my favorite horror films.
I just find the shark movies, you're probably not going to find yourself in a dilapidated house with, a ghost living in there and a Candyman coming out of the mirror. Maybe you do. I don't see that possibility really being there. But the shark attack, that could happen to anybody near a body of water, near the ocean. People go on vacation, they go on boats all the time. Boats sink, shark attack. It's just a fear, a horror movie fear that I think is the closest possibility of happening.
Yeah. And I think that's why Jaws is so effective is it feels like something that could happen, but also there's there's sort of that innocence of summer, having fun at the beach and being carefree, and the ocean itself is terrifying. And, there's this thing in the water that, can easily take that fun and innocence away from us, in the blink of an eye. It's a very primal fear. and Jaws tapped into that super well.
Netflix had it a month or two ago. I watched it. I think it was the 47 meters and then the sequel to that. And that's a shark and people are on a boat and it gets a hole in it. And the one guy wants to stay on the boat and everyone else like, oh, we can swim the 10 miles. I have not been that uncomfortable in my skin in so long. The anxiety it was producing in me, the shifting in my chair as I was watching it, like, just guys, don't get in the water. Like, please don't. And then once the shark fin was up and slowly picking them off one by one. And it's not even, I guess it's just the real possibility. It's you could see yourself in that situation and there's nothing you can do. Like, there's nowhere, you can't get out of the water. There's nowhere to hide. It was terrible. It was not terrifying. It was just anxiety producing. Good movie.
Still watch them. I've heard they're good.
Yeah. As a filmmaker or something, it's probably gonna be ridiculous. But just as a sitting there watching and like, I'm just pouring sweat watching, like, oh my God, like, please, why doesn't somebody do something? Like, there's nothing you can do. It's tough. It's like aliens. They're stuck on that planet on the base. And guys like, oh, let's go up and nuke it. And they're still debating back and forth and getting picked off one by one. Like, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
It's tough. Yeah.
It's the isolation of space versus the isolation of the ocean. That definitely plays into that fear. But you were saying?
What's next on your agenda? What's on the horizon?
So I just produced another short horror film shot in January. I was just a producer on it. A local actor, he was looking to make his own film and he sent me a script. He wanted to get my thoughts on it. And it was so good. Like, I was going to be like, are you going to direct this? Because if not, I will. But he wanted to direct it too. So I produced it. I helped him put the crew together and get everything sorted out on that. And it was probably the smoothest film shoot I've ever been on. So we just finished that. We're in editing right now. I just watched a cut of it and it's looking really good. And once that's ready, we're going to start sending that around to festivals. We had a really successful crowdfunding campaign for it, which I still can't believe. So we got some money set aside to submit that to festivals. And then, I'm still Black Pines, my Jersey Devil movie. I'm still searching for funding for that to make the full length version. And then, who knows? I'm still teaching my film class here in Pittsburgh and sort of weighing my options for the future right now as to what I want to do.
The movie that you produced, is that a full length feature fee?
It's a short. Noah, the writer director, he just told me that he could see it being a feature. He has an idea of how to turn it into a feature. I didn't know that when I read the script. It's like 7 pages, and I thought, as far as being a short horror film, it was incredibly effective. And it's a very simple story, which all the best horror films are pretty simple. But maybe that could turn into a full length film. But we'll see how it goes. We're gonna, like I said, once it's done, we're gonna submit to some film festivals and see where it goes from there. We're kind of laid back with this, which I think is approach to take to it, where we're just like, oh, we'll do a crowdfunding campaign. If that doesn't work, then we'll figure something out. And the crowdfunding worked, and now we're like, well, we'll edit it and then see what else comes from it. And then, and then I have another short film that I wrote 2 years ago for another local filmmaker. He just finished shooting it a couple weeks ago. So hopefully that will be out this year, next year. I'm very excited for that one.
I'm sorry, and that's a short as well?
That's a short as well. A local filmmaker, he'd come, it was a horror idea, but he had come up with this idea and he reached out to me and he was like, hey, do you want to write this? He's like, I don't know if it'd be your thing, but he pitched me his idea and I loved it. I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, man, I'll write this short for you. So the script was called Post-its. I think he changed the title. The title's now Gentle Reminders. It just wrapped shooting. So hopefully this year, next year, it'll be out into the world. But I was very proud of that script. I was very excited to see what he did with it. So we'll see.
When you filmed Black Pines, how long was that filming process?
It was meant to be a weekend, but the first day, as I said, I said a little bit, we were filming in 17-degree weather, but there was also extreme winds, so it kept blowing our equipment around. It was wreaking havoc with our sound. And then our actress started going into hypothermia, so we called it, stopped shooting that day. And we came back the next day, which was an interior shoot, and we shot all the interior stuff. And then we eventually got like a skeleton crew and went out to the woods, I think the following week. They have much better weather, and we shot the wood stuff. So, it took about 3 days, we'll say about, 2.5 days because of weather, but we had originally scheduled a 2-day shoot for that.
How difficult did you find? I mean, obviously the cold was a problem, but the sunlight in the winter, I mean, in an hour or two, that's changing shadows dramatically, right?
Yeah, that was big problem too, because we originally were hoping for an overcast day, so we wouldn't have to deal with that. But also just for mood too, and we were having fog and haze everywhere. So when we first on day one, when we first got to the woods, it was freezing, but it was overcast. So we're like, oh, this is perfect. And then everything went wrong that day. Our makeup day. Unfortunately, it was a sunny day. So yeah, there's lots of running around, and you're having to compensate for one shot being cloudy and another shot being sunny. It was a big pain. A lot of times in Pittsburgh, a lot of this indie stuff is shot in winter because a lot of people who work crew, a lot of the big productions, those don't shoot in the winter because nobody wants to film in the cold. And those are shooting in spring and summer, fall. So a lot of the passion projects or indie films are shooting in the winter because that's when everyone has time and is able to get everyone together to do that. So because the story of Black Pines, the script that I wrote, it actually takes place in the spring, but the only time we could get crew and get everyone together was February. So that's why we were shooting in February in Pittsburgh.
What's the biggest production you've worked on?
My first production I've ever worked on was The Dark Knight Rises. I'm a big Batman fan, and I found out that I was shooting in Pittsburgh, and I was like, hell or high water, I'm getting on that fucking movie. You and I, we met work at the casino. It was supposed to be my first day at the casino, and I got a call to work on Batman. So I called the casino, and I was like, hey, guys, can I start another day? And they're like, yeah, but if you do this again, we're rescinding the job offer. And I was like, yeah, that's fair. That's understandable. But yeah, I worked on the scene where they blew up the football field. I was a PA on that. It's exhausting. It was like a 16-hour day, like 90-degree weather, hundreds of extras, but it was so worth it. Like I loved doing it. I got to say I worked on Batman, but that was probably the biggest thing I've been on. I've also worked on a couple Amazon shows, a couple Netflix shows. The League of Their Own Amazon show, I worked on that last year. But I think, yeah, as far as big budget stuff, Dark Knight Rises is probably the biggest thing I've been on.
That's awesome. Great movie.
Yeah, I was very proud to have been part of that. And, it's, yeah, I got like a tattoo from it too. Like I had to commemorate that I was on that one.
Oh, definitely. The film festival circuit you're going to submit to, what's that like?
I'm about to find out because I've never really gotten involved with that. We're just going to look at a couple, probably, short film festivals or horror film festivals. I think once the film is ready, we're going to start researching those. But I'm sort of new to all that. I went to my first film festival last year, one of the short horror films my friend Alex and I worked on. It won a festival here in Pittsburgh and went on to a national one in Washington. So that was a great experience, but that was my first time being at one. But you're basically kind of a website that shows you all the festivals and what you can submit to, and there's usually a fee. It gets pretty pricey, so we're probably going to research a couple of festivals and see what's in our budget and see what the criteria is, and then submit it and hope for the best.
I wrote a middle school book about a fourth grade spy, and there was this indie book festival, and it was a couple $100 to submit or whatever. I was hoping I would win. I was I'm proud of the book, and I submitted it, and I don't know how many people were in there, and they list the top 3. And for fiction, I lost to Kobe Bryant. So I was like, I like to think that I came in fourth. If he didn't submit, I would have had it. There's no receipts for that, so don't worry, people. But to me, I sleep good at night thinking I came in fourth.
Oh, that's that's. And plus, you're putting yourself out there too, So for festivals, I'm new, but like I've submitted to a couple screenwriting contests, and Black Pines, the Jersey Devil script, that placed. It was a quarterfinalist in one screenwriting competition, and it was a semifinalist in another. So that definitely gave me like the confidence boost in that to be like, oh, I'm gonna try to make this now. So I know a little bit more about that because screenwriting festivals, they look good on your resume, so it's good to have that. But I'm about to get a crash course in submitting to film festivals here. Probably in the next few months. That's the short film. Once that's all ready.
Now, once you packaged your baby at the Black Pines and you sent it out, was it anxiety producing for you? Was that like the whole world's going to see your thoughts, or whoever you're sending it to, and you make your short film and that's out and people are watching it? It's near and dear to you. You put your blood, sweat, and tears into that, and for people to look at it and judge it one way or the other, how were you able to handle that?
It wasn't as anxiety inducing as I thought it was. In 2020, when I was like getting it ready and I was sending it to friends to read, a lot of them seemed to respond, really positively to it. So that kind of gave me like okay, I'm not crazy. This is clearly resonating with people. And then, I kind of submitted it to screenwriting competitions, and it was sort of like, well, I don't want to get my hopes up, but at least I got it out there. And then seeing that I work at a haunted house here in Pittsburgh around Halloween, and I was like checking my phone and I got the email that I was like quarterfinalist and one, and I like almost sobbed. Like I couldn't believe that I made it that far. And then after that, my friend was like, "Oh yeah, let's produce it." And I think most of the anxiety was just getting it made, and like the day before filming, being like, am I a good filmmaker? Like, am I gonna fuck this up? How's it gonna be? All those sort of doubts. Then once it was finished, I was very proud of it. The short that we shot, and I was just kind of like, I just wanted to get it out there. I didn't really care what people thought. I just wanted them to see it.
At that point, you like carry the baby, you're like, just get it out. Like, I don't care. Like, it's fine. Like, the world can just have it.
Yeah, exactly. And I've always said that with Black Pines. Like, I'm hoping to get it produced, but like if a studio is gonna offer me money to take it away from me and, get someone else to do it, I'd be like, yeah, all right. Like if you're gonna give me a fuck ton of money to, walk away, I'll do that. But yeah, like I think at that point, it was like you said, like I'd gotten it that far and I just kind of wanted to get it out into the world. And I'm like, if they don't like it, that's on them. Like I spent like you said, blood, sweat, and tears on it. So have at it.
I think it helps that, and you can say if I'm wrong, I think it could have helped that you had your circle of people that you trusted, that you were bouncing these ideas off of, and they were like, no, that's good. Like, you should run with that. Like, you already had the affirmation that you were on the right path. And now if and studios, like, who knows what they're going to pick up or produce? You see the junk that ends up on TV anyway. Half of it isn't even original. For them not taking it, it's almost a badge of honor at this point.
I guess, like you said, the people that I sent it to, giving me the feedback definitely gave me like okay, I think, this is something, this isn't just me being crazy. But then, placing in those contests, that was definitely more of that like affirmation of like, oh, so yeah, this is something, this could be something really interesting. But yeah, and then, once I saw the footage we had shot, we did our best given, the weather and circumstances, but I was really happy with what we got. To an extent, like every filmmaker, I think, has that where they're in editing and they're like, oh, I wish I would have shot from this angle, or I wish I would have got this shot, So there was a lot of that, but the way it came together, I was very happy with, and, everyone that was involved seems to be pretty proud of the film.
That's awesome. I watched what you posted on Facebook. I thought it was really good. It was creative. It was new. The lead, she looked scared as she was doing it. I thought she was a very good actress. I don't have the chops to determine, does she have the De Niro aspect to her or whatever it might be, but I thought she did a great, very believable.
Yeah, she's Jess is great. She's a very good friend. She's a local actress here in Pittsburgh. And when I wrote the character, I envisioned the characters very differently. But then I had seen Jess act in a lot of local films, and she acted in a slasher film called Massacre Academy, which I think because of some sort of rights issue hasn't been released yet. But she impressed me for her performance in that. She was great. And I pretty much like offered her, I was like, hey, I'm thinking about making this indie monster movie. Do you want to be in it? I didn't even like have her audition, right? Because like of how impressed I was with her performance she gave in Massacre Academy. Just had a premiere this past weekend. I was just there for another horror film she's in called Wolf Hollow by the same filmmaker, Mark Cantu, who made Massacre Academy. And looks like Wolf Hollow is going to get distribution. And she's in that too, playing a very different character. And she's great. But there's lots of great local talent. And Wolf Hollow is a really good, it's a really good, showcase of a lot of local indie film talent here. And hopefully, they all go on to bigger and better things, because there's a lot of talent here in Pittsburgh, and a lot of people here are very hungry. But it's not LA, so we all got to work a little bit harder to get there. But yeah, she's wonderful, and it's pretty much like a one-person show for her. There's the guy in the monster suit, and then there's David as the sheriff at the end. But she really carries it all on her shoulders in that.
Where can people go to? We'll get to your film in a second, but these indie films, these films that Jess are in, what's the best way to stay up to date on that or to view them?
It's really tough because a lot of them you do kind of have to be in like a circle or something, like, whereas like Massacre Academy, I was friends with Jess, but I was also writing, reviews for a website that did nothing but review indie horror films. So, I offered to write a review of the film. The director sent me, he sent me a copy of it, but that's sort of, from what I understand, there's some sort of rights issue going on with that. That's why that hasn't been distributed. But, Wolf Hollow just had its premiere. I think that's seeking distribution right now. But so we'll see what happens with that. But a lot of the indie films, they shoot and they might go and play at a few festivals, a lot of times. And then if they can't get distribution, they just are put up on YouTube or something. Or, some people, put it up on iTunes or out to rent. So you got to do some digging, but a lot of times they're shot and, go to festivals or people are using them to try to raise money, or, they're trying to find a distributor and they can't. There's a whole business end of it. I'm getting a crash course in now having a film that I want to get funded, but it is sort of hard because, there's lots of hoops filmmakers have to jump through to get their indie films out there, and lots of gatekeepers too that you have to get through, and it gets expensive.
Where can people go to view Black Pines, the trailer that I saw? Where's that available?
That is on YouTube. If you just look up Black Pines movie, it's on YouTube. We are sitting at right now 1,400 views roughly, which I'm very happy with. Obviously I love to spread the word, but yeah, they can go on YouTube and just search up Black Pines movie, and I think that's the first thing that comes up.
All the Amazon and Netflix execs that are listening to this now, what's the best way for them to contact you?
You can probably find me on Twitter at James Reinhardt, or Instagram at James Thomas Reinhardt. Reach out there, or I think Black Pines is on the Indie Ground Films YouTube page. That's my friend Alex, that's his production company. Probably reach out to them too and talk to us about that.
And then just to wrap up, what's your advice to somebody trying to break into the industry? If in the Pittsburgh area and not in LA, not in New York, what's the best way to go about this?
It's really about who you know. A lot of the stuff I've got up, the projects I've worked on were made through connections, and even, getting Black Pines off the ground, shooting this film, it was all with people I'd known and had established relationships with. So networking is big, but also, don't just be an empty networker. Just don't network for network. Make relationships, be a nice person. Obviously be a good worker and have people who want to work with you and have people who believe in your story. It's it's a challenging business, but I don't know how to do anything else. But I'd also say, there's definitely creative aspect, but as like I said, as I'm finding out, there's a business aspect to it that I'm getting a crash course in. So know the business side of it as well as the creative side, because those things sort of exist in tandem in this business. But yeah, I guess my advice would be a good person and be a hard worker and find people that you want to work with and want to work with you, and help each other out.
Be nice and bring something to the table.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you have to plug? What can we help you with?
Let's say my former co-host at Cinema D'Amore, they're still going strong, so go listen to them. I'm on a few older episodes. And Black Pines on YouTube. Go check that out, and follow me on social media at James Reinhardt on Twitter and James Thomas Reinhardt on Instagram. I'm on TikTok now. I do little movie reviews, so I think I'm James Reinhardt on TikTok as well. But yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. And then on the YouTube, on the Black Pines, they can leave comments after they watch it?
Yeah, they can leave comments, and that's on Indie Ground's YouTube page. Indie Ground Films is my friend Alex's production company, so he has a couple of his short films on there as well. So check out his stuff, or like and subscribe. But yeah, absolutely leave comments, or give us a thumbs up and all that. Every little bit helps.
All right, everybody, go out there, check out James's film Black Pines, leave a comment. Tell him you heard him on Wild and Weird. You enjoyed the show. James, I really appreciate it. When you come back out to Jersey, we're going to go squatching, man. We're going to find him. I love it. Bring him back. Let's do it, right?
I'm down. I'm totally down.
I truly appreciate it. You have a great night. Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
All right, everyone. That was our show. Don't forget to leave a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast. Like and follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date in all things wild and weird. Check out the links in the show notes for more information on our guest. The biggest support you can offer is to tell everyone about the podcast. Until next time.